I'm tired of what my people have done, what they continue to do. I'm sick of it. I'm tired of seeing people suffer. I'm tired of the inequality. And you ought to give a too.
Hey friend, white guilt and shame is a problem that white people experience because they cannot tolerate stressful situations, and they especially cannot tolerate situations where they're confronted about white supremacy or about race. So it's a form of dirty pain, which Menachem describes in his book, which is a type of pain where we are sitting in our wounds and refusing to heal them. So we are becoming cruel or violent. We are running away. We are just emotionally disassociating ourselves. And all of this creates more dirty pain. So white guilt and shame is a way that white people reassert their right to be white by just reprocessing trauma and pain and tension and conflict instead of confronting the reality that white supremacy is just deadly poison.
If I sound really angry when I have a heavy energy right now when I make this TikTok, I can't help it. Something happened in Texas, in a Texas school, elementary school to be exact. Just happened. As the school was getting ready for its school year, and teachers and admin were hanging up all kinds of welcoming posters and stuff on the walls. One of the posters was a picture of two hands holding on to each other. It didn't show the children, just their hands hanging on to each other. One was a black hand and one was a white hand. And some parents called and complained and said that that was politicizing and that it needed to come down. And the trustee of that school on the school board said, I agree. That's politicizing, and that needs to come down. The picture of a black child and a white child holding hands needed to come down. I want everybody to pause for a second and think about this. And when this trustee was asked, well, what about all of the Bible verses that are now being hung around this public school? Isn't that politicizing? She refused to answer. I highly recommend, if you have not found on TikTok, conveniently, an 8-part presentation by Dr. Joy Angela DeGroy. I hope I said her name correctly. And it's called The Post-Traumatic Slave Syndrome. I highly recommend you take the time to watch it. In one of the parts, it talks about a law that was passed. It was passed as a result of slave owners that beat their slaves to death because they didn't follow instructions. Do you know how hard it is to beat somebody until they die? What kind of rage has to be inside that person, and how much they are dehumanizing that beautiful soul in front of them? They passed a law that said, should this happen, that a slave not follow instructions and they are beat to death by their white slave owner, that slave owner cannot be held responsible. They cannot be convicted. They cannot be charged. They cannot be made to feel bad whatsoever because it was 100% the slave's fault. Okay? Do you want to know why I'm bringing that up? Because when you take a look at all these white nationalist evangelical Republicans today, including those on Moms for Liberty taking over these school boards, and you see their coldness, the steel coldness in their eyes when people come in and cry and plead and try to have fruitful conversation and get them to see the error of their ways when they behave like this, it's because according to Dr. DeGroy, most of the beatings until the slaves were killed were by white women beating black children to death. I want you to take that in so you understand, everybody understands what we're really dealing with here. There's not just segregation being attempted here. There's segregation reverting back to the kind of dominion white evangelicals had over every person with any kind of pigment. Okay? That's what's happening. So whatever was in those women's cold, dead hearts when they sat there beating these black children to death for not following instructions, that kind of DNA, whatever that evilness is what has infected the white evangelical Republican movement today. I said what I said.
Why is it that white folks support anti-blackness, race, and white supremacist culture in so many goddamn ways? Why is it that we support it through our silence, our defensiveness, our denial, that code of silence? Let's not talk about it. Let's ignore it. All that gymnastics, that defensiveness, the anger, the passive aggressiveness, the stereotyping, the overt, covert racism, all the that we do, the gaslighting, all that we do as white people. Why can't we just leave black people the alone? Why? Because we were taught that. It's our culture. White supremacist culture is American culture. It's European culture. We see ourselves as overseers. We ourselves as entitled to control and judge black people. White Americans wanted, back in the day, we demanded black people be segregated, right? So we segregated. Black people said, okay, great. We're going to make our own. They started doing great. What did we do? We burned their communities down to the ground. And you're going to sit in your silence? You ought to be ashamed of yourself for not giving a every single one of you that can't talk about it, that spews narratives, stereotypes, denial, gaslight. That's not their reality. Telling black people what the they should think, feel, do, be, you. Do better. Reject your training, your indoctrination. Question your own goddamn morality racially for once in your life. I'm tired.
I'll let you guys in on a little secret about white people. Every single white person knows somebody who is racist. Racist towards black people, racist towards Spanish people. We all know somebody. It might be our family member, it might be a distant relative, it might be a coworker, it might be an old friend, but we all know somebody. Personally, I come from a whole family of racist people. Yeah, my entire family is Republican too, okay? My dad's parents are racist, and my mom's parents are racist, okay? So I'm literally going against everything by talking about this. I am putting my own life on the line by speaking about this, and that's what we all should be doing. See, we could have ended this a long time ago, but people like my mom listened to these racist comments that their parents were making and didn't speak out against it. They kept their mouths shut, or they agreed with them silently, you know? But they didn't do anything about it. They continued to let this be passed on generation after generation. Oh, my mom never told me or taught me any racist ideologies. She continued to let it happen because she didn't speak out against it when her parents were talking about it, or my dad's parents were talking. So if you are against racism and you are against discrimination and you're a white person, you need to speak out about it. Otherwise, you are allowing this to continue generation after generation, and you are just as much a part of the problem as anybody else.
So yes, you heard him right. He said that white people could have stopped racism a long time ago by speaking out against it. He brought up his mother as a perfect example. He said while she may not necessarily be racist, but she allowed racism to continue within, her parent circle and her husband, which is his dad, I guess. by not speaking out against it. And he says if you're quiet about it as white people, you are pretty much condoning it as well. And so apparently he's going about breaking that and speaking out against it. And he is absolutely right. Racism could have ended a long time ago if white people would have stopped it, because oftentimes we in the black community get charged with stop racism. Oh, we have to do our part to stop racism. But we know we can't stop racism because we didn't start racism. And we know that black people have very little control of anything in this country, let alone stopping racism, right? So I agree with him 100%. It's going to take his folks to stop racism. But see, the problem is we know that they benefit greatly from racism. They always have, right? They've always benefited from racism, which is why they are where they are in society, due to the racism that they created. Will white people ever speak out wholeheartedly as, a majority against racism? Probably not. But in the meantime, we as black people can do our part, and that's not vote for racism. Because if y'all notice, he said most of his family are Republican, but it's not just the Republicans. It's the Democrats too that are very racist. So we can stop voting for racism, and we can stop spending with racism as much as we can, right? And start pouring into our black owned businesses so that we can build something of our own. But again, I agree with him. It's on them to stop racism. Will they ever do that? Nah, probably not. But we should do all we can on our behalf to lessen the blow of racism. So anyway.
Now, I know it is very crazy seeing white people crying on TikTok, crying on YouTube lives about and confessing the sins they have been doing and the bad things that they have committed to the black people. Now, let me take you back to time. Now, there was this guy called Malcolm X. Malcolm X was a Muslim who was actually trying to unite black people. Now, just because of the religion and whatever he stood for, Malcolm X was assassinated. Now, in his very last interview, Malcolm X said something. He said, a day will come that black people will unite and they will know the truth. And he actually said that when black people will be uniting, white people will actually lose their unity. And for this case, they'll be separated and they'll try to go against the system and betray their own system. This is the exact things we are now seeing, that white people are going against their own system, a racist system that was put there to discriminate black people, a system that was put there to make them the lords of this world, a system that was put there to make sure that they lead, control, manipulate, and actually dominate human race. Now, let me now remind you one thing. History will always repeat itself at a point. We've seen the atrocities that were caused to black people by white people. Over time, black people have been enslaved in their countries. Black people have been there working in their farms, making sure that actually the economy is stable. What did they get in return? Racism, rejection, and so many other atrocities that are so traumatizing. Now, black people persevered during this period, and they have actually continued persevering for the longest time. Imagine living in a foreign land where you are not wanted, but they want you at the same time to work for them. At the same time, they try to discriminate you. Why are you in our country? For 400 years. Now, it has come a time that white people are actually realizing we did bad to the black people, that this is the time we should reconcile and make peace with the black people. Now, some of them are actually accepting the fact that the black people are the actual people in the Bible, and that black people are actually the blessed generation. How many times did we see people actually talking about Africa and black people collapsing over time? During the COVID-19 time, back in 2019 and 2020 and 2021, there was a white professor who actually said that if this COVID-19 thing is sweeping the US, what will it do to African black people? That black people are going to die like dogs in the street and there will be no one to bury the other. What really happened? We still live. We are here kicking alive. Now, after realizing this, white people have been accessing the situation. Why are black people so much hated? Why were our grandparents telling us to hate black people? And now they are coming out to scream so loud and say, you know what? We are very sorry for the problems we've caused you black people. And we are here to make things right. I wish everyone from the West, I just wish everyone from the West could have realized this, that there comes a time, even if it's not now, just like Malcolm X had said it 60 years back, that there will come a time when black people will unite. Who knows? It can be next year, it can be in 5 years' time, and this will serve as the biggest threat to white people. Some of them are actually good, and they are coming out to say, you know what, we are very sorry. But the question is, do they mean whatever they are saying, or they are just saying it for the sake? We actually need a change. We actually need to see things working for both races. It is 2024. It is so sad seeing black people being discriminated by white people on the basis of color. Who still does that? Why should they do that? Now, this is a wake-up call to you, my brothers and sisters who are watching this video. My black brothers, this is the time to unite. I still don't want to see the feud. I still don't want to see petty issues between African Americans, black Americans, and those guys who stay in Africa or any other part of the world. We are one. They have actually manipulated, they have dominated us just because we ain't united. This is the time to unite. This is the time to bring ourselves back on track. This is the time we can bring the change. Thank you so much for having taken your time to watch this video. I appreciate so much.